Hello, this is my Bronfenbrenner Bio-Ecological Systems model. I decided to do something kind of crafty, and I used a hopscotch theme because my students really love it when I draw hopscotch games for them. So I have the microsystem in yellow, and then moving out I have the mesosystem in blue, the exosystem is pink, the macrosystem is green, and then I did the chronosystem in white kind of in the margins, and I made a key showing what all the colors are there. So here I am in the middle, Miss Meredith, as I am known at the center. I am 52 years old, a white woman, partner, daughter, mother of two wonderful kids, teacher, owner. I have kind of a dual role at my center since I am both. I have a dog mom and a bookworm. I love to read. I am kind of silly with my students. I love being goofy with them and making them laugh. I love singing, which I am pretty good at, and I like dancing, which I am not so good at. And I am a gay teacher, which can have a big impact on how people see me and how they react to me. Zooming out to my microsystem in the yellow, my partner, my mom. I lost my dad many years ago. Other family and friends, the neighborhood where I live. Around here I listed my kids, and my daughter is 21, my son is 19. And then around here I have my work. So I listed the students in my class, the other teachers that I work with, my business partner, other staff, and then I also listed CCA, since that is kind of a big part of my life at the moment. So my microsystem would be all the people that I deal with frequently. They're part of my everyday life, kind of my inner circle, and that's the yellow. That's my microsystem. Zooming out to the mesosystem and the exosystem. The mesosystem shows the connections between the microsystem and the exosystem, how things relate, how they connect, how they affect each other. So going back down here to work, I listed my students' families, the other teachers' families, licensing, the community where the center is located. All of these would affect my work life. Moving out to the macrosystem, these entities would affect how we run the center, the rules we have to follow, the state of Colorado, the health department, and then also the larger culture, Colorado culture, the US culture, and kind of, how American attitudes are, cultural attitudes about helping early childhood. So that would be the macrosystem, and then there's a big exchange going on between these systems, and so I put in the arrows there going back and forth. If you go back up to my kids, the exosystem has their online classes, their friends. Out here in the chronosystem, I put pandemic because that's having a huge impact on all of us right now. It's having a big impact on them as far as not going to class, but doing class online and not being able to socialize. And then up here, also in the chronosystem, I put that my kids, because of when they grew up definitely in the age of technology, like young people did today. And so then other things that would impact them since they are in college, the college administration would be out in the macrosystem, state government, state culture, US culture. And then I also put youth culture, since a lot of times young people are kind of into different kinds of entertainment, different music and things like that, different from their parents. And then moving around here to my partner there in the yellow, in the microsystem. And then I move out and you can see the mesosystem and the exosystem. We have kind of more than one culture affecting our relationship. So we have American culture, and then we also have the Egyptian half of her family, which is very different from American culture. Moving around here, the circle here. I wrote in the mesosystem that I wanted to be a teacher because in the exosystem, I have that my mom is a retired teacher, and that had a really big impact on me, and it's a big reason why I wanted to be a teacher. My dad's job meant that we had a big church family. Our lives kind of revolved around the church, lots of friends, lots of activities related to the church. But then also there were some expectations for me, and I didn't quite fit in some ways. Over here in this part of the chronosystem, I put current political division because that's having a big impact on all of us at the moment, making life more stressful. Here, in my microsystem, I listed my other family and friends. Some of my family is accepting of me. Some of my family are not, based on their beliefs. And so in the exosystem, I wrote their biases, their acceptance, and then farther out from there in the macrosystem, I wrote Texas culture, US culture. And then also in my microsystem, I have my neighborhood. And then moving out into the exosystem, the larger region where I live, which is Berkeley, then the city of Denver, planning, the government of Denver, all of these things would impact my neighborhood and therefore me. And then moving out from there, the state of Colorado, and urban culture, which tends to be, different from suburban culture, tends to be different from rural culture. So I grew up in the 80s, and I wrote that over here in this part of the chronosystem. And so all of these things are going to have an impact on how I grew up and the beliefs that I accepted versus the beliefs that I challenged, and who I am today. So that is my Bronfenbrenner nested circles in a hopscotch theme. And now I'm going to move this, and here is my students. And I'm calling her Kay, and this model is supposed to look like the back of a basketball hoop. I don't know if it really does, but you can use your imagination. So this is a student, Kay, who used to be in my class. The family actually ended up moving to a different center. They were looking for a place that was less expensive, and I was sad when they left. But when she was in my class, she was 8 years old, so I have that written down there. She started out 7, and then she had her 8th birthday. One of her parents is an immigrant to the United States. She has an older brother, she has a younger brother, so she's the middle kid. She is a person of color, super creative, messy, outgoing, and I wrote down loud because she by far is the loudest student I have had to date. And she was a little bit bossy. She was called bossy by some of the other kids, and that's one reason why she ended up spending a lot of time with me. Sometimes other kids would get mad at her, and she would spend time with me. So in her microsystem, which I did in green, you can see her parents. Based on just what I observed, I would call them authoritarian. Her 2 brothers, some friends, her maternal grandparents were close by, her school teachers, her after-school teachers, which usually would be me, or maybe someone who was filling in for me. Her family was very involved in her church, and I know that she enjoyed that. She got a lot out of that. No pets. She complained to me that her parents would not let her have a pet. And I did something a little bit different. I put books in her microsystem. And the reason I did that is because she read a lot. She was a huge bookworm, and she talked about characters in books like they were her friends, like they were people that she knew. And reading had a really big impact on her. So it seemed like books belonged in her microsystem as well. Zooming out to the exosystem and the mesosystem between the two systems, you can see I kind of made some wavy lines. So the mesosystem is in pink, and then I did the exosystem in blue, but then I kind of used both colors in between to represent how those two systems were kind of interacting. And there's a lot of interaction going on there between those two systems. So starting with her family, I think there was a lot of pressure for her to do well in school, to have really good behavior, to be really responsible. So that's why I wrote down here, I wrote love and support in between, but also over here I wrote pressure too, because I think that in her mesosystem, I think there was really both going back and forth a lot. And there was a cultural thing happening there too, because looking here, you can see her father, because he was an immigrant, that culture of her father's country is kind of stricter. Expectations are really high, but both for academics and also for behavior. But she's growing up in a place where generally kids kind of get more freedom, so there's some conflict going on there, and that's why I wrote conflict and support. So she lived in an apartment complex. We come over here to her exosystem, and she lived in an apartment complex that I found out did not have any green space, did not have a playground, nothing. There was no outdoor space for her to play and for her brothers to play. And so in the exosystem, that would be the city planners that didn't require a playground at this apartment complex. And then beyond that, out in the macro system, that would be the state and possibly the federal government that allowed that to happen, which would make life so much harder for families to live in an apartment complex that didn't have an outdoor play space. So in the area of school, she had no problem with academics. She did have some behavior struggles. And then you can see from the school district out to the state would be in the macro system because of setting standards, and then the school district would also be responsible for some standards and behavior expectations. So all of those would have an impact on her. And I wrote safety but limits there because those behavior expectations would be limiting. She found them to be limiting, but a lot of them were for her safety. So same thing in the after-school program. Of course, we have rules. We have safety and health standards. She couldn't always do everything she wanted to do. So she couldn't climb on furniture. She couldn't throw, sand in the sandbox and things like that. And then if you move out to the macro system, you see that the state of Colorado, those things are all going to have a big impact on the after-school program, and then so indirectly on K. There are other things as we move around here in the macro system that are going to affect that exosystem, and then eventually that impact would reach her and her microsystem. And like I said, here in the mesosystem, I wrote love and support and also pressure. I think that both of those things were happening for her. This is a student that I will never forget, and I hope she's doing great. I actually miss her, but she's also a student who I thought just had a really interesting background, so that's why I decided to choose K. And I'll pull out here so you can see the whole thing. So these are the two Bronfenbrenner Bio-Ecological models that I created, and thank you very much for watching.